I want to begin by describing a feeling, and I want you to tell me internally whether you recognize it. The feeling is this: you are standing in a familiar room of your own life, doing something ordinary, and for a brief moment, almost too brief to register, you sense that the room is about to change. Not the furniture, not the walls, something deeper, something about the room's relationship to you. As though the room is preparing to welcome you back as a different version of yourself and is making small, invisible adjustments in advance of your return. If you have felt that even once in the recent past, what I am about to tell you will not surprise you. It will only confirm what your body has already been quietly registering. The room is changing. Your life is preparing for someone wealthier, lighter, more spacious to walk through it. That someone is you, in a near future that is closer than your conscious mind has dared to estimate. There is a number in the title of this reading, and I want to address the number directly before I do anything else, because numbers in spiritual messages are always interesting. They are rarely literal in the simplistic sense. They are also rarely irrelevant. They function as anchors, as markers of magnitude, as psychic signposts that point toward an order of change rather than a mathematical guarantee. What I want you to understand is that the number associated with this reading is pointing at a particular scale of transformation, and that scale is significant, not modest, not incremental. The kind of scale that, when it lands in a life, restructures more than a bank account. It restructures the assumptions that have been quietly running underneath the bank account for years. That restructuring is what is happening to you now, regardless of how the literal numbers eventually shake out. The literal numbers will be substantial. The energetic numbers are even more so. Let me show you how I am sensing this come together, because the architecture of an incoming financial blessing of this magnitude is more interesting than people usually realize. Most people imagine that money arrives the way water arrives from a faucet. You turn a handle, water comes out. The faucet is the source. The volume is whatever the faucet permits. This is a useful metaphor for small movements of money, but it is not how large movements work. Large movements arrive more like weather. They form, they gather, they develop pressure. They move across landscapes that are larger than any individual life, and then they precipitate, sometimes suddenly, sometimes gradually, onto the specific lives that have come into alignment with their path. You have come into alignment. The weather is forming. What is gathering is real. The precipitation is the part you will eventually see. Most of the work is happening in the gathering phase, which is happening now. This is something I want you to hold throughout this reading. Most of the work is already done. The movement that you are part of is not in its early stages. It is in its visible stages, which are actually the late stages. By the time something becomes visible, it has been forming for a long time. The forming does not require your effort. The forming has been doing itself on its own schedule, in response to conditions you set in motion long ago without realizing you were setting them. You have been a kind of unwitting weather maker. The pressure systems you generated through years of choices, through patterns of integrity, through small acts of staying true to something the people around you did not always understand, have been organizing themselves into the configuration that now produces the precipitation. You are about to be rained on by something you started raining a long time ago. The precipitation has a few different forms, and I want to walk through them in a way that respects how they are actually showing up rather than in a way that sounds tidy. The first form is direct. Money that arrives as money through channels that are recognizable, through a process that, while perhaps surprising in its details, is not metaphysical in its mechanism. there will be transactions. There will be paperwork. There will be moments of confirmation that are entirely ordinary in their texture. Do not dismiss the ordinariness. The ordinariness is part of what makes the blessing land cleanly into your life. Spectacular blessings tend to bounce out of lives like coins on hard surfaces. Ordinary looking blessings tend to seat themselves into the existing structure and stay. The second form is indirect. Money that arrives as something other than money but functions like money. Resources you do not have to pay for that you would otherwise have had to pay for. Time that becomes available to you that was previously consumed by survival activities. Help that shows up from people who would not, on the surface, have any reason to help you, but who do because something about the moment has activated a generosity in them that they would not have offered under different conditions. These indirect forms are sometimes harder to count, but they are part of what is being delivered. Pay attention to all of it. Track even the small reductions in friction. Each reduction in friction is a form of wealth that you do not have to produce yourself. The third form is structural. This is the one most people miss entirely because it is the slowest to manifest and the hardest to see in real time. Your relationship with the entire concept of money is being repositioned. The position you have held in relation to money for most of your life is being retired, and a new position is being installed. From the new position, things that used to feel inaccessible begin to feel ordinary. Things that used to require enormous effort begin to require modest effort. Things that used to seem reserved for other types of people begin to feel like options that are available to you. This shift in position is the most valuable thing happening, even though it is the least photographable. The new position is what makes the wealth sustainable. Without the new position, any money that arrived would eventually find its way back to where it came from. With the new position, the money tends to stay and to multiply and to do its proper work. I want to pause to address something that I am sensing in you as I deliver this. There is a part of you that has been waiting to hear something like this for a long time, and there is another part of you that has been waiting to hear it and immediately disqualify it. This second part of you has heard messages of abundance before. It has watched them not pan out. It has developed a protective skepticism that is on the whole healthy, but is in this case getting in the way of full reception. I want to speak to that protective part. You are allowed to keep doing your job. You do not have to fully believe this on first listening. You can hold it provisionally. You can wait for evidence. That is fine. I am not asking you to abandon your discernment. I am asking you to make a small space, even just a tiny one, in which the message can sit without being immediately dismissed. The space does not have to be large. Even a small interior crack is enough for what wants to come through to begin its work. This is Cancer Tarot, and I want to take a moment to describe what I am picking up about how this is going to look in your daily life. Because the unfolding of large financial movements has a particular texture in real time that nobody really describes in advance. You are going to notice in the coming period that small confirmations begin to accumulate. They will not feel large individually. They will feel almost trivial. A bill that turns out to be lower than you expected. A piece of unanticipated good news from a peripheral source. A conversation that opens an angle you had not previously considered. A piece of mail that contains something useful. None of these on their own is the win. All of them together are the leading edge of the win. They are the universe's way of priming your nervous system for what is about to land at scale. Each small confirmation is a rehearsal. Each rehearsal is teaching your body how to receive. The reason this matters is that nervous systems that have been trained on scarcity do not automatically know how to receive abundance. They flinch, they tighten, They redirect incoming resources toward old fears before the resources can do their proper work. The small confirmations that are now beginning to accumulate are part of the process of teaching your nervous system to relax around incoming good. By the time the larger movements arrive, your body will know what to do. It will not panic. It will not deflect. It will receive with composure. This composure is one of the things that distinguishes lives that are permanently changed by financial blessings from lives that are temporarily disrupted by them and then return to their previous condition. You are being trained in real time to be the first kind of life. I want to address the doubter that is named in the title of this reading because you came here expecting that figure to be addressed, and I do not want to leave that thread hanging. There has been someone in your life, perhaps more than one, who did not believe in the version of yourself you have been moving toward. They express this in various ways, sometimes through outright dismissal, sometimes through subtler condescension, sometimes simply through the absence of encouragement during moments when encouragement would have made an enormous difference. You felt the absence. You recorded it, even if you did not consciously archive the recording. Part of what has fueled your forward motion has been an internal commitment to outgrow the doubt, not in order to prove anything to the doubter, but in order to demonstrate to yourself that the doubt was not authoritative. You have been doing that demonstration. You are nearly finished. Here is what I want to say about that doubter, gently and without bitterness. The doubter is not your enemy. The doubter is, in many cases, someone who could not afford to believe in your possibility because believing in it would have required them to confront the limits they had placed on their own. People often doubt others not because the others are not credible, but because the believing would be too uncomfortable. To watch someone, rise into a fuller version of themselves is to be confronted with the fact that you could, in theory, do the same. Many people prefer not to be confronted with this. So they downgrade the rising in their assessments. They offer reasons why what is happening to you is not really happening, or is not as significant as it appears, or is the result of luck rather than substance. These downgradings are not really about you. They are about what your rising means for them and for the choices they have made. When the abundance lands in your life in a form that is undeniable, the doubter will encounter it in one way or another. They may encounter it directly. They may encounter it through information that travels along the channels we all share. They may encounter it through the simple fact of seeing you in a context that no longer accommodates the version of you that fit their original assessment. What happens inside them at that point is gently, not your concern. You do not have to manage it. You do not have to perform humility to soften the impact. You do not have to dim yourself to make their adjustment easier. They have their own work to do. Their work is to update their model of you and possibly of themselves. That work is theirs. Yours is to continue rising with grace, without spectacle, without the kind of triumphant energy that, while emotionally satisfying, would actually slow your continuing ascent. There is something I want to say about the transformation of the doubter that I think is more interesting than the version of this story that ends with their being humbled. The most beautiful version is the one in which their encounter with your unmistakable success becomes for them an invitation to question the assumptions they have been operating under, an invitation to reconsider what is possible in their own lives. An invitation to update not just their view of you, but their view of the world they live in. Some doubters take this invitation. Most do not, at least not immediately. But the offer of the invitation is the highest form your rising can reach. It does not just lift you. It places in the field the possibility of others being lifted by witnessing your liftedness. This is the most generous use of a personal blessing. The fact that you have it in you to offer this kind of invitation, rather than merely seeking the satisfaction of being right, is one of the qualities that has earned you what is now arriving. I want to come back to the practical dimensions of what is unfolding, because I do not want this reading to drift entirely into the philosophical. You are going to encounter in the coming period choices that did not used to be choices, decisions about how to allocate resources that you would not previously have had access to. The question of what to do with money is a different question depending on how much money is involved, and you are about to step into a tier of that question that is unfamiliar to you. I want to suggest a few things, not as instructions, but as possibilities to hold in your awareness. The first is that you do not have to know what to do immediately. There will be a temptation as the resources land to feel that you should have a plan, that you should be deploying things efficiently, that you should be making moves quickly. There is no rule that says this. There is, in fact, a strong case for the opposite. Sit with the resources for a while before deploying them. Let yourself get used to having them. Let your sense of what they are for clarify itself in its own time. Major moves made too soon before integration has occurred often produce results that are misaligned with the deeper trajectory of your life. The resources will not lose their value if you take time to think. They are patient. Match their patience. The second is that the deployment, when it does happen, should reflect who you are becoming rather than who you have been. There will be a temptation in the early stages to use new resources to address old problems, to pay off the old anxieties, to shore up the old defenses. Some of this is appropriate. There are practical matters that genuinely benefit from being addressed, but the deeper deployment is not toward old problems, it is toward new possibilities. The version of you that the resources are accompanying is not the version that was solving the old problems. It is a version that is no longer organized around those problems and is therefore free to direct its resources toward what it is moving toward rather than what it is moving away from. This is a different orientation. It produces different choices. It tends to produce better lives. The third is that you are about to learn things about money that you do not currently know, and the learning will be one of the gifts of this period. There is a literacy that comes from having more, that you cannot fully develop while you have less, not because you are not capable of it, because the texture of decisions about larger amounts is genuinely different from the texture of decisions about smaller amounts. You will develop the new literacy as you go. It will not require a course. It will require attention and humility and a willingness to learn from the experience itself. You have those qualities. They have served you in other domains. They will serve you here. I want to share something I am sensing about your relationship with deserving, because the question of whether one deserves a major financial shift is one of the most common interior obstacles to fully receiving one. There is a part of many people that, when significant abundance approaches, asks whether they have done enough to merit it. The question is sincere, but it is also a trap. It is a trap because the framing of merit, as it is commonly used, was never designed to apply to gifts of this scale. It was designed for ordinary transactions. Apply it to something larger, and it produces only paralysis. The more useful question is not whether you deserve this, but whether you can carry it. The two questions are sometimes confused. They are not the same question. Deserving is a moral question. Carrying is a capacity question. You can stop interrogating the moral question. The capacity question is the one that matters. and your capacity has been growing for years. You can carry this. The carrying will not break you. The carrying will, in fact, become one of the most natural things you have ever done. I want to also address what you might do with people. Once the resources land, people in your life are going to have reactions. Some of these reactions will be straightforwardly joyful. They will celebrate with you. Their celebration will be uncomplicated and warm, and you will feel in receiving it that you have been seen by people who actually love you. Hold these people close. They are the foundation of the relational life that is being built around you. Other reactions will be more complicated. There will be people whose congratulations come with subtle barbs. People who immediately begin reconfiguring their relationship to you in ways that do not feel quite right. People whose attention to you increases in ways that suggest the attention is responding to the resources rather than to you. Notice all of this without becoming cynical. Cynicism is not the right response. The right response is discernment. You can love people and still notice the changing texture of their interest. The noticing is information. Use it. Here on Cancer Tarot, the messages that come through about this kind of transition often emphasize what the person is gaining, but I want to also acknowledge what they are leaving behind, because the leaving is part of the transition and deserves its own moment of attention. You are leaving behind a particular relationship with worry that has been a constant companion for much of your life. Worry about whether things will work out. Worry about whether you can cover what needs to be covered. Worry about the small humiliations of having to make do. That worry has been a roommate. It has shared your interior space with you for a long time. As the new conditions move in, the worry is going to be asked to move out. The leaving may take some time. Habits of worry are deeply grooved. But the eviction is underway. You may notice in the coming period that the worry has lost its volume. It still tries to speak, but it speaks more quietly than it used to, and it is easier to set aside. This loss of worry will be one of the most underrated parts of the transition. People talk about gaining wealth. They rarely talk about losing the chronic anxiety that wealth, properly held, dissolves. The dissolution is going to free up enormous internal real estate. Real estate that has been occupied by worry can now be occupied by other things, by creativity, by presence, by the quality of attention you have always been capable of, but have not always been able to access in full. The freeing up of attention is in some ways more valuable than the resources themselves. Attention is the substance of life. To have your attention back in greater measure is to have your life back. I want to spend a moment on the feeling of the actual day when the largest piece of this lands, because I am sensing it as a very specific quality, and I want to pre-describe it so you recognize it when it arrives. The day will not feel like the day you imagined it would feel. You have probably, at various points, imagined what it would be like to receive a major financial blessing. The imagined version usually includes a lot of immediate emotion. Tears, perhaps, disbelief, phone calls. The actual day, if my sensing is accurate, is going to have a quality of calm clarity, as though something you have been waiting for finally arrived and was simply itself without performance. You will receive the news or the document or the confirmation, and you will sit with it for a moment. And the emotion that comes will be a kind of soft, settling recognition rather than a fireworks display. You will feel, more than anything, a sense of fittingness, the fitting of a long-awaited piece into the puzzle of your life that has been waiting for it. After that initial moment, things will speed up a little. There will be practical matters. There will be people to inform. There will be steps to take. But the initial moment is the one I am pointing at. Honor it when it comes. Do not feel that you are doing it wrong if it is quieter than you expected. The quietness is appropriate. The quietness is, in fact, evidence of how deeply prepared you have become to receive without being overwhelmed. I want to mention something about gratitude and the form it should take in this period. Not because I think you need to be reminded to be grateful, but because gratitude has different forms. And the form most useful for you now is specific. The form is recognition, the act of recognizing what is being given as it is being given, not in the abstract, in the specific. When something arrives, no matter how small, take a moment to actually notice that it has arrived and to register internally that you have received something. This act of recognition does something to the field around you. It tells the universe that the channel is open, that you are paying attention, that deliveries are not being missed. The universe, as a result, increases the rate of delivery. This is not a transactional dynamic, it is a relational one. You are entering into a different kind of dialogue with what surrounds you, and the dialogue rewards your participation by becoming more vivid. I am also picking up something about the way this is going to ripple beyond your individual life. Lives that receive abundance of this scale tend to become resources for other lives, not necessarily in dramatic ways, sometimes simply through the example they set, sometimes through the resources they redistribute, sometimes through the new options they create that did not exist before. You are going to become, in some way that will reveal itself over time, a node of provision for other people, not in a depleting way, in an overflowing way. The overflow is going to find its proper destinations on its own. You will not have to manage this carefully. The natural movement of abundance, when it lands in a generous person, is to find more places to go. Your generosity is one of your defining traits. Money in the hands of generous people behaves differently than money in other hands. It moves more, it produces more good, it returns more reliably to the source. Watch this happen. Take pleasure in watching it. There is one more thing I want to address, and it is the question of timing. People always want to know when. I cannot give you a calendar. What I can tell you is that the period you are in is the period of arrival, not the period of approach. The period of approach was earlier. You have moved through that. You are now in the period during which the visible arrival of what has been approaching takes place. Within that period, there is variation. Some pieces will arrive sooner, some will arrive later. The general window is open. You are inside it. This is not a rehearsal. This is not a preview. This is the actual unfolding. You may want a more specific marker, and I understand that. But the energetic accuracy of what I am being shown is more important than a specific marker. The energetic accuracy says you are inside the window now. That is the most useful thing I can tell you. I want to offer one practical suggestion as we move toward closing. In the coming days, keep a small, informal record of the confirmations you notice. Not a serious journal, not anything elaborate. Just a quick note. When something happens that feels like a small piece of evidence, the unexpected refund, the conversation that produced an opening, the resource that showed up without being requested, the accumulating record will serve two purposes. It will give you something to look at when your skeptical part flares up and demands evidence. And it will train you through repetition to notice good things at the rate they are actually arriving. Most people register a small fraction of the good things in their lives because their attention is not calibrated for it. You can recalibrate. The recalibration is part of how you become the person who can hold the larger arrivals when they come. Here on Cancer Tarot, The closing of a reading like this is also a kind of opening. I am closing this transmission, but you are opening into a period in which what was transmitted begins to take material form. The transition from message to manifestation is yours. To walk, I have walked with you as far as a reading can go. The rest of the path you walk yourself with the message available as orientation, but not as substitute for your own engagement. Walk forward, walk lightly. Walk with the expectation that what is coming is real and that your job is to be present to it as it arrives. This is the simplest job you have ever had in terms of what is required of you, and the most subtle in terms of how it is performed. You are about to live a different chapter. The chapter has its own atmosphere. You will feel it within a few weeks if you have not already begun to feel it. The atmosphere is one of room. There is more room. There is room around your decisions. There is room in your schedule. There is room in your imagination. The room is the wealth in some ways more than the money itself. The money is what produces the room. The room is what makes life livable in a way you have not yet fully experienced. Move through the room slowly. Notice what becomes possible inside it. Notice who you become inside it. The becoming is the most valuable artifact of all. You are loved. You are seen. The work you have done in invisibility is being lifted into visibility, and the lifting is being done with care. The doubter, if there is one, will encounter the visibility in their own time and respond as they will respond. None of that is your concern. Your concern is the simple, beautiful task of being present as your own life becomes more itself. That is enough. That has always been enough. And the universe, recognizing that you have always done enough, is now responding with what it has been holding for you. Receive it. The receiving is the entire ceremony. There is no other ceremony required. Walk into the room that has been preparing for you. The lights are on. The space has been arranged. The version of yourself who lives there is waiting calmly with the quiet confidence of someone who has been expecting your arrival. Greet that version. Move in. The chapter starts now, and it has been waiting longer than you have realized for you to walk through the door.